Hi again. Today we're going to be looking at four figures of speech or figurative language. They are similes, metaphors, idioms, and proverbs. Now you need to know what these are and you need to know what the difference between them are because sometimes one can look like the other. And in a test I might ask you, find the simile in paragraph 3, or I might give you a sentence and say, is it a simile or a metaphor? Or I might ask you, why is it an idiom or why is it a proverb, right? Or I might even ask you for the meaning. There are thousands of idioms and proverbs in English, so you won't know all the meanings of these. Similes and metaphors are, each one is kind of unique because you make them on your own, you can construct them, whereas idioms and proverbs, they already exist as they are. You can't change them, you can't make them, they just exist and you use them. Right. So the first one we're going to look at is similes. Right. When we look at similes, the two words you want to look at are as and like. Those are the words. Now please remember that a simile is a comparison. Right. And when I say comparison, what I mean is that you take one thing and you compare it to another. Right? So there has to be two things. There has to be two nouns or two ideas, right? So that will equal two things that are compared to each other. So it's a comparison, and it has to use as and like. Now you can make your own one. You can say, oh, that boy is as tall as the Eiffel Tower. Right. So the boy being your first item and the Eiffel Tower being the second item. Let me just put a full stop there. So when you look at this, I'm comparing the boy to the Eiffel Tower. And you'll also notice I have the word as twice. Right. That boy is as tall as the Eiffel Tower. Now, which one exists? The boy you can see. The Eiffel Tower you can't. The Eiffel Tower isn't there. You're not comparing the Eiffel Tower to the boy. The boy exists, you see the boy, and then you think, oh, he is as tall as the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower doesn't exist. Right. Let's look at another one. Let me say, that athlete is as fast as lightning. Okay, right. So the two items you're comparing, the two nouns, are these two. Okay, and you'll notice there's an adjective in here. Once again, we have the two as words. So I'm saying the athlete is as fast as lightning. Okay, right. So here you have another example where the athlete is there. The athlete is doing his thing. He's running. The lightning isn't. If there was lightning, the athlete wouldn't be running. The athletics meet would be canceled. So you're just thinking of lightning and comparing it. Now, obviously, this is an exaggeration. The athlete is not as fast as lightning. But if you just said, oh, the athlete is as fast as a fast person, that would be really, really just boring writing. So the simile makes writing more interesting. Yes, you're exaggerating. He's not really as fast as lightning, but it just makes it more interesting in the writing. So you have these two items. That's item 1, that's item 2. Only this one exists at the moment, right? When you make the simile, the athlete is there, the lightning isn't. But you're saying he is as fast as lightning. Now, how does it look with like? If we say here, she dances like a swan. Now you'll notice she, that's our one noun or pronoun, and the swan is the other one. But I've changed out the as for a like. So let's put the other one in there. Let's say the athlete is as fast as lightning. Okay, so we have these two, and they're very similar in that you have a person who is being compared to something. Here you have the word like, and here you have the two as words there. Okay. Now, when I say she dances like a swan, the difference here is that dance is a verb and fast is an adjective. So when I am comparing an adjective, fast, relating to the athlete, fast athlete, then I use as. But if I'm using a verb, dance, dance isn't an adjective. I can't say the dance girl. I can say the dancing girl, but then that would be a different word. I can't say the dances girl. Right, so this verb here then is followed by like. Okay, so let's go to another one. All right, just do two more examples, just so you can clearly see the difference between. So the next one I have here is, I feel like a dirty, wet dishcloth. So we see here, I am being compared to a dishcloth. The dishcloth isn't actually there. Well, I mean, here I would possibly also put the adjectives that describe that, but the feel is a verb. So that's why I use like here. And then if I look at this next one, my eyes are as dry as dust. So clearly the eyes are being compared to dust. The dust doesn't exist. The eyes are there. But dry is an adjective, not a verb in this case. So that's why I have the two as there. All right. Now these are some similes that someone made, but there are also common similes, ones that are kind of set in stone. They were created a long time ago, and everybody just decided we're going to use these for these specific adjectives or verbs. For example, the baby is cute as a button. Right. And you might look at that and you might think, wow, teacher, that's really strange. Why would I say the baby is as cute as a button? But you have to understand, this comes from a long time ago. They're like, oh, button is tiny, it's cute, right? And so that's why they use that one there. And then we have something like pretty as a picture, right? Which you might think like, what kind of picture? But long ago, there wasn't Instagram or Facebook or even digital cameras, so most pictures were paintings and they were beautiful. So this one comes from a long time ago. So there are a few similes that you basically just need to study and learn what they are, right? For example, some of them you might know, right? As blind as a bat, right? That's a very simple one. That one still makes sense, and everybody uses it, and it makes complete sense, right? So those are kind of common similes, but they follow the same rules. They still have as, they still have, right? So baby is, oops, I missed a word there. As cute as a button. Sorry about that, right? The baby is as cute as a button. I missed one as. Okay, pretty as a picture, as blind as a bat. Let's see. You can also find common ones for like. You can say, for example, oh, don't cry like a baby. Wait, why is that one not typing? Don't cry like a baby, right? So there we have one that has like in it, and that is another example of a common simile. Right. So let's move on from similes. And it's very important that you remember that a simile is a comparison, because when I move to metaphors, it's also a comparison, but it doesn't use as or like. So it's still a comparison. It's still comparing one thing to another. Okay, it's still comparing two things to each other, but it's not using as or like. So you can actually take a a simile, and you can change it to a metaphor, where if I say, don't cry like a baby, and then I take this out, and I'm like, don't be a baby, right? Because now I'm saying you're a baby, right? So let's change that to that, actually. You're such a baby, right? Now, if I say this to an adult person or even to a child, it's not true. They are not a baby. But what I'm doing is I'm saying that they're acting like a baby. But I'm just taking that step out. I'm saying you're such a baby, right? And it sounds like it's untrue, but I'm just exaggerating. I'm just saying that that person's acting like a baby. They're like a baby, and that's why it's a metaphor comparing this person to a baby, but I'm making it stronger. A metaphor is more powerful because if I just say you are acting like a baby and I say you're a baby, it has more effect. It's more powerful. So that's a metaphor. We'll look at a few more examples of metaphors. Let's take that out. Okay. Let's see what other metaphors we can come up with. So let's say, for example, I have the snow. Hold on. Why are you not typing? The snow. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay. The snow is like a white blanket. Now, because that has the word like in it, it's a simile. But as soon as I take it out, watch, the snow is a white blanket. I'm still comparing it. There's still no blanket, right? It's still just snow. But I'm using it to create an image in the reader's or the listener's head, and it's stronger and say the snow is a white blanket instead of saying the snow is like a blanket, right? And if I say something like Tom's eyes were like ice when he stared at me. Okay, once again, this is a simile because it has like in it. But as soon as I take it out, Tom's eyes were ice when he stared at me. Right. So Tom, I want to use, instead of just saying Tom had a very angry look when he looked at me, it's much more effective to say Tom's eyes were ice when he stared at me. Were they really frozen? No, that would be extremely painful. Okay, then he needs to go to the hospital, right? There's no real ice in his eyes, but it talks about the coldness in his look. Okay, so let's look at a few more, all right? Okay, let's say we go like this. The computers at my school are dinosaurs. Right. Now, you could read this and think, oh, the computers are shaped like dinosaurs, or they look like dinosaurs, or they're robot dinosaurs. But that's not what I'm saying. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say the computers at my school are very, very, very old. Right. Are they really as old as dinosaurs? No. But I'm exaggerating for effect. And it sounds much better than just saying the computers at my school are very, very old. It just sounds boring, right? But if I say they are dinosaurs, and this time I didn't put the like in, I immediately made a metaphor so that I can have just that strong comparison that goes there. And you get that image like, oh, these computers are just like, they're big, they're clunky, they're old, they're dusty, and they're slow, right? And it's such a good metaphor. All right. Let's look at another example. Let's say your mom looks into your room and she's saying, oh, my mom says my room looks like a pigsty. Okay, right. Maybe this has happened to you. personally. Your mama said your room is a pigsty. Okay, at the moment, we have a simile. But if I take it out and I say, my mom says my room is a pigsty, then I end up with a metaphor. Is there really a pigsty? No, what does she mean? She means your room is extremely dirty. Okay, right? It's the same when someone says, oh, you are a pig. It's an insult, but it's also a metaphor, right? They don't mean you're actually the animal pig. They just mean you have those characteristics of a pig, right? And someone says, oh, you are like Einstein, right? Then that is a simile. If I take it out, it's like, oh, you're Einstein today, right? Then I'm not saying you actually just turned into Einstein. That would be really weird and terrifying. But you are really smart today. Okay. Let's just look at one or two more. Let's look at this one. I can't spell today. Terry's ideas are dynamite. Okay. Now, obviously they mean dynamite, not as in he blows things up, but they are really good. It's a slang term, right? And what you mean here is they're really good, right? And dynamite is a very good and useful thing. So Terry's ideas are dynamite is definitely a metaphor, okay? And if we look at something like, let's say, yes, this is a good one. My school is like a prison. That's a simile. Take it out. My school is a prison. Right. It's not really, it would be different if my school is a prison. Oh, you're actually in prison? That would be weird. No, you're just saying like, oh, it's got very strict rules and it's depressing and you don't like it. Okay. So those are metaphors. So when you look at the difference between a metaphor and a simile, the key is as and like. So we can also say, my school is as strict as a prison. Right. Let's take Terry's dynamite out of the equation. So we have three sentences here. These two are definitely similes. And then this one right here, this is your metaphor. Because this one has like and this one has the two as. But they're doing the same thing. All these sentences are doing the same thing. They're comparing two things. They're comparing the school to the prison. The prison isn't really there. The school is there. But you want to say something about the school. So you use the second thing to say something about the first thing. All right. Is that clear? I hope. So you'll be able to know the difference between a metaphor and a simile, and you'll be able to recognize them. Okay. So let's get then to idioms and proverbs. Now, I'm kind of going to do these at the same time because they're related, and often people confuse them, and especially in a test situation, if I want to ask you, right, is that sentence a simile or a metaphor or a proverb or an idiom, that can get a little tricky. So let's just make sure that we know exactly what they are. So let's look at a few idioms first. Okay. Let's see. That car cost me an arm and a leg. Okay. This is an idiom. Right. And what an idiom is it is when you have a phrase that means something else than something other than the words mean, right? Because if I look at the sentence, if you took the literal meaning of that sentence, that would be quite scary, because either you cut off your own arm and leg to buy that car, or you got an arm and a leg somewhere, which is somehow even more scary. Like, how did you get that? Whose arm and leg is it? Right? But we all know when we say it cost me an arm and a leg, that what I really mean is that the car was expensive. It was really expensive. Right. Okay. And you can kind of see the meaning there, because your arm and your leg are very important to you, and if you lose them, they're valuable, right? Like, so it's a phrase that means something other than the words mean. Right. So the words mean an arm and a leg, but the idiom means expensive. Okay. Let's look at another one. Right. So let's assume you say in class, oh, you're going to be president one day. And then one of your friends or classmates responds like this: you become president? Right? And then they say, yeah, when pigs fly. Now, again, what do they really mean? They don't mean that pigs are going to start flying when you become president. That would be cool, I guess, but then you have pigs falling out of the sky, and you have pigs flying in airplanes and buildings, and it's just not a very good thing. What they mean is, so will pigs ever fly? Will pigs grow wings? No, they won't. So what do they really mean? They mean never. Right? That's what that means. You will never become president when pigs fly. All right. So those are two examples of idioms. Now there are a lot of idioms. You can try and memorize idioms, but for 1 point in the test, it's really hard to, just study hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of idioms just to get 1 point in a test. What you will need to be able to do is, out of the context, realize what the idiom means, because that is how we do it. And if you can, and in this case, reading books helps. Books use a lot of idioms, and when you read the books, you might not know the idiom, but you can see in the story, you're like, oh, okay, the character was doing this, and then they said when pigs fly, I see, that means never, right? So you can always try and figure out the meaning. Okay, I'm not going to go through lots of examples of idioms because there are so many of them. Right, so let's get to proverbs. Now, a proverb is a common saying, which means that most people know it, that gives advice, usually life advice, and sometimes it has a different meaning than the words in the phrase. Okay, but not always, right? Yeah, let's just say sometimes. It sometimes has a different meaning than the words in the phrase. So what do I mean by a common saying? Let's do one of these. Practice makes perfect. Right. That's a very common one. Basically, it's giving advice. It's telling you what to do. It's telling you how you can make your life better. Right. So by advice, I mean do's and don'ts. Right? Oops. Do's and don'ts. Okay. What you should do and what you shouldn't do. So that is how it's different than an idiom. Because if I say the car cost me an arm and a leg, okay, I'm not giving advice. I'm not telling this guy, hey, you shouldn't buy that car. It's not don't buy expensive things. It's not giving advice. It's just saying the car was expensive. It's not saying it's a good car or a bad car, or what to do with your money. It just means expensive. The car is expensive, right? That doesn't tell me what to do. Okay, then it's up to me to decide. But If I say something like, all that glitters is not gold. So if I look at this one, that's a proverb because I'm trying to tell people what to do, right? I'm trying to say, hey, just because it's a fancy, expensive car doesn't mean it's important, doesn't mean it's valuable, doesn't mean that's important in your life, right? Just because something is fancy and expensive and shiny doesn't mean it's important. I'm literally telling you what to do. Don't buy the shiny, expensive thing, right? Which makes it a proverb. Okay, so let's look at a few other ones of idioms versus proverbs. And you can kind of guess along when you look at it to see if it is an idiom or a proverb. Let's look at actions speak louder than words. Right. This, what is it? You can say it to yourself. This, of course, is a proverb because I'm trying to give someone advice. I'm saying like, hey, what you do is more important than what you say, right? Because people can say a lot of things, and usually you would say this in context. Let's say someone is just talking, and they never do the right thing. Then you would say this to them, and you would tell them how to act. You'd be like, "Hey, you're not acting in the right way. You're saying the right things, but you're not doing the right thing." Okay, so that would be a proverb. I'm going to put a nice P there for proverb. Okay, let's look at our next one. Let's look at this one. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Okay. Now, this sentence, you can clearly see it has a different meaning than what I mean. Nobody's really going to bite someone's hand, but what the meaning is that it means that you shouldn't be mean to the people who take care of you and the people who help you, right? Kind of like an animal in the zoo, okay? If the dog bites the person that gives them food, that person doesn't want to give them food anymore, okay? But you're saying this to a human, okay? That would be really weird if people started biting each other's hands. So the meaning is that they're saying, don't be mean to people who take care of you, right? Or who give you something. So, for example, I'm not going to go into my boss's office and swear at them and say bad words because then I'm not going to have a job anymore and I'm not going to get money anymore, right? I bit the hand that feeds me. Now, is this a proverb or an idiom? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. It's definitely a proverb because it literally has the word don't in it. I'm telling someone what not to do. I'm giving them advice, right? I'm telling them what not to do. All right, let's look at the next one. The robber was caught red-handed by the police. Okay, so let's look at that. Clearly we have something here that means something different than the words in there. It doesn't mean his hands were painted red, right? And you're like, what does that mean? Well, red-handed means that they caught him while he was doing it. Right. That's what red-handed. They caught him in the act. In the middle of robbing the bank, the police found him. Or in the middle of him going into the jewelry store and he literally has the jewelry in his hands. And the police are there and say, hey, hands up, what you doing? Right? And there's nothing you can do because they literally saw you doing the thing that you're not supposed to do. That's caught red-handed. Right? If you're caught afterwards and they're like, hey, you robbed that bank yesterday, that's not red-handed. Now, question is, proverb or idiom? Okay, and it's only this one here, caught red-handed. That's technically the phrase. Give you a few seconds. That is an idiom. Okay, let's put an I there. Why is it an idiom? It's not giving advice to the robber. It's not telling the robber what to do. It's not telling the police what to do. It's not telling you what to do. It's just saying what happened. The robber was caught red-handed. Right. It's not giving advice to anyone, so it's an idiom. And this is where I want you to see a difference between the proverbs and the idioms. The idiom, if you actually were to just highlight the idiom, it's caught red-handed. But this right here, actions speak louder than words, is the whole proverb. don't bite the hand that feeds you is the whole proverb. And usually a proverb can stand on its own. It's a complete sentence. It's a complete command for someone, whereas an idiom needs to be put in a sentence in the context of what is happening in that story, right? So this idiom, you can see the robber isn't part of the idiom. The police, they're not part of the idiom, right? But it helps to color the story to use that idiom. Okay, right. So let's just review everything we've done so far. Okay, and you can guess along when you get to it. Simile, right? Simile, 2 words, like, as, and it is a comparison between 2 things, right? So that is our simile. Okay, and you will either use as or like. Then let's move on. And he is as strong as an ox. He runs like the wind. Those would be your similes. Okay, let's get to a metaphor. Okay, right. And the metaphor is a comparison of 2 things, but you do not use like or as. You are literally saying that thing is that thing, which is untrue, but you're still comparing. If I say, oh, you are a chicken, right? If I say you are a chicken, I don't actually mean you're not human. I mean that you are scared like a chicken. Okay, right. Moving on to our next one. And we have idioms. Okay, now an idiom is a phrase with a different meaning than the words in the phrase, right? But an idiom doesn't give advice. It doesn't try to give a command to someone. Then we move to our proverb. Okay, right? And the proverb is a sentence, or let's say a common phrase that gives life advice, right? What you should do, what you shouldn't do, right? That is a proverb. And sometimes it will have a sentence that has a different meaning than the words, but other times it's just clear. It just says honesty is the, so if you look at something like honesty is the best policy, right? Often they rhyme as well. Honesty, policy. Okay, your proverbs will rhyme often. Okay, it's clear. Honesty is the best choice, right? Honesty is what you should do. That's a proverb. Okay, so those are similes, metaphors, idioms, proverbs. I made an activity where you can go on forums and you can see if you can recognize whether the phrase used in a sentence is a simile, a metaphor, an idiom, or a proverb. All right. Hope that was helpful.